And I'll be reading from the New International Version, verses 30 through 35. Luke chapter 24, verses 30 through 35. It reads like this: When he was at the table with them, he took bread, gave thanks, broke it, and began to give it to them. Then their eyes were opened, and they recognized him, and he disappeared from their sight. They asked each other, "Were not our hearts burning within us while he talked with us on the road and opened the scriptures to us?" They got up and returned at once to Jerusalem. There they found the 11 and those with them assembled together and saying, "It is true, the Lord has risen and has appeared to Simon." Then the two told what had happened on the way and how Jesus was recognized by them when he broke the bread. There's a familiar poem I think that most of us know. I'm just going to read it, and you'll probably recognize it once I start. One night I dreamed I was walking along the beach with the Lord. Many scenes from my life flashed across the sky. In each scene I noticed footprints in the sand. Sometimes there were 2 sets of footprints, and other times there were 1 set of footprints. This bothered me because I noticed that during the low periods of my life, when I was suffering from anguish, sorrow, and defeat, I could see only 1 set of footprints. So I said to the Lord, "You promised me, Lord, that if I followed you, you would walk with me always." But I noticed that during the most trying periods of my life, there were only 1 set of prints in the sand. Why, when I have needed you most, you have not been there for me? The Lord replied, "The times when you have seen only 1 set of footprints is when I carried you." We find comfort in this poem when we have a hard time seeing our way, or when things are happening that we don't understand, or when we are uncertain about the future. And it is a way of not only looking for Jesus, but finding him again. So for a few moments, we're going to be talking about finding Jesus again. In our text, Jesus had risen from the dead, and the disciples were slow in believing that Jesus was still alive, and they had met someone on the road, and they were talking about Jesus, not realizing that they were talking to Jesus. The disciples were sharing good news about Jesus without even realizing it. They were extending kindness to who they thought was a stranger, not realizing they were extending kindness to Jesus. The text says they did not recognize it was Jesus until they were reminded of their Last Supper together. They remembered the way that Jesus took bread, gave thanks, broke it, and gave it to them. They remembered how they followed Jesus for 3 years. They remembered the sacrifices they had made to follow him. They remembered the times when they were devoted to him. They remembered the wonder and awe of being around him as people were set free and healed and delivered. They remembered the adventures they had been on together. Remember, Jesus spoke peace to the storm, and Peter was walking on the water. Remembered his words that the Son of Man must be delivered over to the hands of sinners, be crucified, and on the 3rd day be raised again. They remembered, and they had reached a footprints in the sand point in their life. There was no time to have a pity party or to mope or complain about things being different. The master teacher had carried them, had taught them, had equipped them. They had to realize that they were no longer just a student, but they had to be the teacher. They had to take on more responsibility. They had to be the ones to carry the ministry forward. They had found Jesus, and it had changed their lives and changed it for good. But finding Jesus again on the road after the resurrection, it was a mysterious thing. There are times when finding Jesus in our lives seem like a mystery. The times we find ourselves needing to find Jesus the most is when we are faced with disappointment. When things change and life doesn't work the way that we think that they should. Jesus, where are you? Maybe it's a better job or a promotion and you don't make the cut. Jesus, where are you? Or it might be a goal you poured your time and your energy into and it doesn't seem to come to pass. Jesus, where are you? All of us have prayed for the recovery of loved ones who were ill and they died anyway. Jesus, where are you? Whether it's from discouragement or just complacency or it's a turning point in your life, the bigger the disappointment, the more your world is shaken. Some might get angry or bitter or feel like a failure. We all react in different ways. Our frustration can seem like a valid excuse to stop going to church or withdraw support or even stop praying, thinking they're getting back at God. It takes real spiritual maturity to stay faithful when things go wrong. Yeah. But severing our relationship with God punishes us, not God. It's self-destructive behavior that puts us in the path of a miserable life. The parable of the prodigal son knew this. The prodigal son knew this, and it teaches this parable teaches us that God always wants us to come back to Him. The son was looking for something that he already had and didn't realize it. When things seem to fall apart and all you have left is Jesus, you'll discover that Jesus is really all you really need. And He's closer than you realize. It seems that some people have given up on Jesus. They've been waiting for a long time for a change to happen in their lives, and they've felt abandoned too many times by too many people and have given up hope. But there's good news today. Keep expecting God to show up. Yeah. Sometimes you can be looking a long time for God to show up and lose your sense of expectancy, Pastor Darrell. But God will still show up. Yes. God can still show up. Oftentimes, God shows up when you least expect it. Yeah. Jesus walked the earth 40 days after His resurrection and showed up in unexpected places. He showed up 7 miles outside of Jerusalem and walked and talked with those 2 disciples. And they didn't even realize it until they began to break bread together. Jesus showed up again as the boys went fishing, helped them to go get some fish, and then they had a fish fry afterwards. Yes. Jesus even showed up when Thomas was present, and He touched the place where His hands and His nails, the nails from the hands and feet were. If you look closely, even at your own lives, you can see that God has shown up in lots of places when you didn't even realize it. It could have been in a stranger's smile. It could have been a compliment given. It could have been a warning offered, a random act of kindness. There was someone who was sharing what had happened on Facebook. He said it was a young man had been to a Wednesday night Bible study. The pastor had shared about listening to God and obeying the Lord's voice, and the young man couldn't help but wonder, does God still speak to people? And after service, he went out with some of his friends for coffee and pie, and they discussed the message after several different ones talked about how God had led them in different ways. It was about 10 o'clock that night when the man started driving home, sitting in his car, and he just began to pray, God, if you still speak to people, speak to me. I will listen and I will do my best to obey. And as he drove down the main street of his town, he had the strangest thought to stop and buy a gallon of milk. He shook his head and said out loud, God, is that you? He didn't get a reply, and he started on his way again home, but he thought again to buy a gallon of milk. The young man thought about Samuel and how he didn't recognize the voice of God and how Samuel ran to Eli. Okay, God, in case that is you, I'll buy the milk. It didn't seem like it was too hard of a test of obedience. He could always use the milk. He stopped and purchased a gallon of milk and passed 7th Street. He again felt the urge to turn down that street. This is crazy, he thought, and drove on past the intersection. And again, he felt that he should turn down 7th Street. And at the next intersection, he turned back and headed down 7th Street, and he says, okay, God, I will. So he drove several blocks when suddenly he felt like he should stop. He pulled over to the curb and looked around, and he was in a semi-commercial area of town, and it wasn't the best of neighborhoods, but it wasn't the worst of neighborhoods either. The businesses were closed, and most of the houses looked dark, like the people were already in bed. And again, he sensed he should go and give the milk to the people in the house across the street. The young man looked at the house, and it was dark, and it looked like the people were either gone or had fallen asleep. He started to open the door and then sat back in the car seat. Lord, this is insane. Those people are asleep, and if I wake them up, they're going to be mad and I will look stupid. Again, he felt like he should go and give the milk. Finally, he opened the door. Okay, God, if this is you, I'll go to the door and I'll give them the milk. And if you want me to look like a crazy person, okay, I'll be obedient. I guess that will count for something, but if they don't answer right away, I'm out of here. He walked across the street and rang the doorbell. He could hear some noise inside. Who is it? What do you want? Then the door opened before the young man could get away, and the man was standing there in his jeans and a t-shirt. He looked like he had just gotten out of bed. He had a strange look on his face, and he didn't seem too happy to have some stranger standing in his doorstep. What is it? The young man thrust out the gallon of milk. Here, I brought this to you. The man took the milk and rushed down the hallway. Then from down the hall, he came, and a woman carrying the milk towards the kitchen, and the man was following her, holding a baby. The baby was crying. The man had tears streaming down his eyes, his face, and the man begins speaking, half crying. We were just praying.
Amen.
We had some big bills this month, and we ran out of money. We didn't have any milk for our baby. I was just praying and asking God to show me how to get some milk.
Okay.
His wife in the kitchen yelled out, I asked him to send an angel with some. Are you an angel?
Well,
The young man reached into his wallet and pulled out the money that he had, all the money that he had on him, and he put it in the man's hand. He turned and walked back towards his car, tears streaming down his face. And he knew that God still answers prayer.
amen.
So today, my friends, don't miss your miracle, don't miss your healing, don't miss your strength, don't miss your breakthrough, because you've stopped looking, or stopped expecting better to come, or stopped watching for something better.
Come on.
God can still show up.
Yes.
The footprints are still there.
Yes.
There is something on the inside that expects God to show up, especially when there's trouble. Jesus is closer than you think and can show up in some amazing ways. Know that Jesus really will show up. We will see him if we keep looking for him. So don't stop looking for Jesus, because there is a prepared plan for you. Jesus had to ascend to heaven so he could sit at the right hand of God and advocate for us, to prepare a place for us, to get ready, to get things ready for us, to make a way for us.
Yes.
It had to be done so that others could hear and receive the good news that our problems do have a solution.
Yes.
That there is a resurrected Christ because of Jesus. So don't stop looking for Jesus, because he's already gone before you to prepare a way for you. A way out of no way. Jesus knows how to go before you and make the rough places smooth and the crooked places plain. God knows how to go before you to make your enemies your footstool. God knows how to go before you to be a strong refuge and a present help in the time of trouble. God knows how to be a strong refuge for you, to go before you and to heal your broken heart, to make goodness and mercy follow you all the days of your life. There is purpose in our waiting on God, but we don't like to wait. But there are benefits to waiting that we just can't see. If we were to peel a banana before it's ripe, it's not good. Some things just take time. The Lord knows the plans for you and for me. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you, to give you hope in the future. We can celebrate that in advance because Jesus is coming back for us.
Yes.
Jesus promised that one day he would return again and claim his bride called the church. So it is a good thing to keep looking for Jesus because Jesus has gone before you, you and me, and will be looking for you. And turn and turn. And so as we turn to him, if you're undecided today, God is looking for you to choose you to follow him. And if you're already convinced, God is looking for you to obey his commands. God is looking for you and I to work together. God is looking for you and I to walk on the right path. How will he find you? Is Jesus not just on your mind, but is he in your heart? Can others see enough Jesus in your life? If your neighbors and your co-workers or your friends didn't read the Bible, can they recognize the Jesus in you? Can they recognize the Bible lived out in your life? Will they know